Bonjour. Welcome to Chapter 2's Grammar, Part 1 lesson. Welcome to the futur proche. Welcome to the world of going, coming and going. Now we are learning the verb aller. Aller, you learned during the first lesson of this class. Comment vas-tu? Comment ça va? Comment allez-vous? So now let's learn je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. Now we are responsible for the entire conjugation. Je vais, and you may have picked that up in the first lesson. Je vais bien, je vais pas mal. Tu vas, comment vas-tu? You've been saying since the beginning of this class, but now you know tu vas. Comment va-t-il? Comment va-t-elle? Il va, elle va. Nous allons, vous allez. Comment allez-vous? Vous allez. Nous allons, vous allez. Ils vont, elles vont. So, in our first lesson, we learned how to say, how are you going? How are things going? How are they going? As the idiomatic way of saying, how are you? Or how are you doing in French? Now, with this verb aller, we can also talk about where we're going in space, and we can also talk about where we're going in time. I said the futur proche. The futur proche, that's the near future. And it's how we talk about activities or even the weather in terms of something that's about to happen. For example, I can tell you it's going to be beautiful tomorrow. So I'll say, il va faire beau. If I'm talking about today, il fait beau, mais il fait frais. But tomorrow, il va faire beau, il va faire chaud. I can talk about where I'm going today. Je vais à Paris. Say I'm going to the city of Paris. Je vais à Paris. Or if I'm going to Paris tomorrow, je vais aller à Paris. Now let's look at the examples given. Because the example I gave was je vais à Paris. When I'm going to a city, I'll use the preposition à Paris. That's simple. But if I'm going to another place, like my psychology class, I'm going to have to use a contraction. Look at this. Claire va au cours de psychologie. Why do I say au cours? Claire va à la chambre. Why is it à la chambre in one case and au cours in another? Well, because one is feminine and one is masculine. Feminine, nothing really changes. You put à and then it's la. À la classe. But if it's le cours, which is more often used in French, to talk about the class in terms of le cours de français, then I have to use the contraction au. A plus le. Au. And it sounds the same if it's the plural. A-U-X, O. The examples given, les étudiants vont tous les jours à l'école. Le professeur ne va pas au bureau. Mon professeur va à Paris en été. Now, as you practice contractions, you also get used to saying oh. It's like you're kind of relearning once again. If you've learned to say le gymnase, or le stade for stadium or gymnasium, well, you also have to learn au gymnase, au stade, le café, au café. L'université begins with a vowel, and it's also feminine. So you would say à l'université. There are lots of activities in this book as you're learning, as you're going through this lesson and doing it yourself. Some activities will focus on conjugation itself, like for I, les or I, les activités, indicate whether these activities refer to le professeur ou les étudiants. So you're training yourself when you see vont to say les étudiants vont au cours de français tous les jours. Or le professeur va travailler, le professeur va à Paris, je vais, tu vas, etc. But you're also not only training yourself to use the right conjugation for aller, but as you go through and kind of try on these new sentences, you're also training yourself to use the right contraction. Again, let's look at the contractions. For feminine, you say à la. Like for the library, la bibliothèque. Je vais à la bibliothèque. If it begins with a vowel, whether it's feminine or masculine, you're going to say à and then L apostrophe, à l'école, à l'étage. If it's le, however, that means it's masculine and singular, and it doesn't begin with a vowel. You're going to contract a and le to o. And if it's les, you're going to contract it to o with an x. But as you practice making sentences, you'll see these contractions and you'll notice them for the first time. Allez au campus. Vous allez au campus. That's le campus. Nous allons au restaurant. Ah, that's le restaurant. Au restaurant. It's like you're learning another layer. You think of le restaurant for the restaurant, and then you think of going to it, nous allons au restaurant, and now you've learned a second version of restaurant, au restaurant. J'aime le cinéma, I like the movies. J'aime aller au cinéma. I like to go to the movies. Activité J ou je vais helps you with this. Le lundi, je vais à... Well, it can't be cours de français because that would require a contraction. Je vais au cours de français. Le lundi, je vais à l'hôtel. This is a silent H. À l'hôtel. Le samedi, je vais... And you've got au, and you have to choose between campus and l'université. So, these activities help you build your vocabulary without putting you on the spot. You kind of slide into them like you're trying on a new pair of shoes, but you're remembering what those shoes look like. Le jeudi, je vais au, so you decide. Now, as you become more comfortable using aller, you'll start thinking about the other use. It takes you into space and it takes you into time. Le futur proche, the near future. So this is a construction with two verbs. I just used a two-verb sentence a couple seconds ago when I said, j'aime aller au cinéma. I like to go to the movies. Well, it's the same thing with the futur proche. But now my first verb is aller. It's always aller. Whatever the second verb is, the first verb, when you're talking about the near future, a future that's about to happen, you've penciled it into your calendar and there's no question it's going to happen or not happen. If you're saying, no, je ne vais pas aller, take your aller and you conjugate it. Je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. And then what you do, you put whatever verb is going to happen in the near future in the infinitive. So, je vais aller à Paris. I am going to go to Paris. Nous allons aller à l'université. We are going to the university. We are going to go to the university. Abia ne va pas aller au café. Abia is not going to go to the café. Now, when you say Abia va au café in French, sometimes that's enough. If you're talking in general, like le lundi, elle va au café. So on Monday, she goes to the café. But if you put in a word like ce soir, this evening, or lundi prochain, next Monday, elle va au café, that sometimes can do the trick. She's going. But the proper way to use the futur proche is the to aller. As in English, right? I'm going to go. Je vais aller. Elle va aller. Elle ne va pas aller au café. Or, what if I want to tell you? It's going to be nice tomorrow. Il va faire beau. Il va And what if I want to say it's going to rain? In the present, you say il pleut. If you talk about it's going to rain, il va pleuvoir. Because pleuvoir is the irregular verb for to rain. Il va pleuvoir. Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire? Activité K. What are we going to do? Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire? Qu'est-ce que tu vas faire? What are you going to do? Aujourd'hui, mon professeur va travailler au bureau. Now you have to make sentences yourself in K and L. If you are kind of stuck, use these expressions down here, or go back to the activities where we were just working and get some ideas from these activities. First, copy, imitate, and then it'll become part of your own memory banks and you'll be able to use it when you improvise your own sentences. So, for example, aujourd'hui, mes amis vont. Well, what are your friends going to do? Mes amis vont. Take your time, write out. And once you've written it out, it'll come back to you when you're making sentences in the present tense, face-to-face conversation. If someone says, what are your friends going to do today? Qu'est-ce que vos amis vont faire aujourd'hui? Mes amis vont aller au café. Mes amis vont aller à l'université. Mes amis ne vont pas. What are they not going to do? Aujourd'hui, mon voisin va, ma voisine va travailler. Aujourd'hui, les étudiants du cours de français et moi, so that's a new, mais les étudiants du cours de français et moi allons, maybe you're going to écouter Integrity, or nous allons parler sur Blackboard, ou nous allons aller au cours de français, ou nous allons commencer un devoir, ou nous allons regarder la télévision française. Aujourd'hui, ma camarade de chambre va, what is he or she going to do? Aujourd'hui, je vais, fill in the infinitive verb. Aujourd'hui, mon professeur va, aujourd'hui, qu'est-ce que je vais faire? Je vais faire du jogging. Je vais faire le ménage. Je vais jouer au foot. Non, c'est pas vrai. Moi, je ne vais pas jouer au foot. Mais mon fils, my son, il va jouer au foot. Je vais cuisiner. Je vais faire les courses. Je vais aller à la banque. Je vais aller au garage. Voilà. Lots of fun stuff. What about you? Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire aujourd'hui? Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? So you have lots of expressions now using the futur proche. Some of them are predictions. This one's a bit weird, but I like the idea of it. Boule de cristal. Make up some imaginary predictions, like Bill Gates va, Brad Pitt et Angelina Jolie vont, Oprah Winfrey va, Rachel Ray et Martha Stewart vont. Qu'est-ce qu'elles vont faire? Qu'est-ce que les princes vont faire? Qu'est-ce que Nathalie Portman va faire? Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? Qu'est-ce que Claire du film Liaison va faire? Est-ce qu'elle va aller à Paris? Est-ce qu'elle va aller à l'hôtel? Est-ce qu'elle va travailler? Voilà. Bon courage.